They said it would be a warning, a message to the humans, a reminder that the Galactic Council's laws were absolute. On 100,000 worlds, screens flickered to life. The girl knelt in the center of a stark, circular chamber, metallic walls gleaming under sterile white lights. She looked so small, so human, so utterly out of place. Her wrists were bound, and two towering Varnak guards flanked her, armor clicking softly with every subtle move. The Grand Arbiter stood before her, robes flowing, his voice amplified and cold. For crimes against the sovereignty of the Galactic Council. The charges were lies. Everyone who mattered knew that. She hadn't done what they said. But the truth didn't matter. What mattered was control. Dominance. A demonstration that even a human could bleed. The camera drones zoomed in as the girl looked up, unflinching. No tears. No pleas. I am not afraid, she said softly. The translator unit clipped to her collar broadcasted it, in all known languages. Billions heard those words. Some scoffed. Some smirked. Others frowned, shifting uneasily in their seats. She was young, barely 20 by human standards. Slender. Fragile. But in her eyes was something ancient. Something defiant. The executioner stepped forward. A needle-thin blade, humming with energy, extended from his wrist. It was meant to be clean. Symbolic. But public. 100 worlds watched. On Earth, silence gripped every room. In orbit above the moon, a black ship drifted silently in shadow. Its crew stood frozen, eyes locked on the broadcast. Inside the war room beneath New Geneva, the president of Earth sat stone still, fingers clenched into the armrest of her chair. Her security chief leaned in, whispering urgently, "Ma'am, we can activate the failsafe. We can still." "No," she said. "We let it play out. They chose this." Her voice cracked. Her knuckles whitened. On screen, the blade pierced the girl's chest. Her body trembled once, then slumped. The broadcast ended with silence. No declaration. No anthem. Just the hiss of static. For 7 seconds, the galaxy held its breath. On the surface of Titan, an old AI monitoring network activity registered the moment. All human channels went dark. All stations paused transmissions. Civilian and military alike. At the 8th second, a signal transmitted from Earth. A single word. Initiate. That's when the countdown began. At minute 1, orbital arrays on Mars shifted, unlocking coordinates stored in deep black vaults. Dozens of stealth ships emerged from shadowy craters, engines whisper quiet. Cloaked. Hidden. Moving. At minute 3, listening posts near the edges of Council space went dark, silently severed from the network. Not destroyed. Just silenced. At minute 8, the Varnak homeworld's second moon exploded. An underground facility they never knew existed detonated with surgical precision. There were no warnings. No demands. At minute 12, every human embassy across the galaxy locked its doors. Staff vanished. Empty buildings. Not abandoned, cleared. At minute 17, Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council stepped onto the chamber floor during an emergency session. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He placed a small hollow device on the table. The image it projected showed the girl, her name now confirmed, smiling on a beach, laughing, hair in the wind. The date stamp was clear. She was not a soldier, not a criminal. She was the president's daughter. And the council had killed her. The ambassador said only 5 words. "This was your final mistake." Then he vanished, taken by a human transport ship already in warp. At minute 21, Council intelligence attempted to locate Earth's central command systems. They found nothing. Everything they thought they knew about human infrastructure was obsolete. At minute 24, the Reaper fleet appeared. Ships with no known design, shaped like wings of obsidian and light. Silent. Massive. Dozens of them. No communication. No demand. No delay. At minute 25, the Council's primary defense grid went offline. At minute 26, the capital planet's orbit filled with black, human drop pods descending like a rain of judgment. At minute 27, the sky broke open. The Galactic Council fell not with screams, but with silence. Controlled. Surgical. Absolute. The capital city of the Galactic Council had never known fear. It had seen protest, rebellion, even invasion, once, thousands of cycles ago, but not fear. Not like this. The skies above shimmered unnaturally as black shapes broke atmosphere without warning. They didn't scream like falling bombs. They whispered, silent, ghostly drops, hundreds of them. Human drop pods, sleek, razor-edged coffins descending with terrifying calm. The Council's planetary defense grid never fired, because it had been severed. Engineers scrambled through control rooms, screaming into dead comms, pounding on unresponsive consoles. Automated turrets aimed skyward spun uselessly. Firewalls, supposedly impenetrable, had already been rewritten from within. Human infiltration had been surgical, quiet, complete. On the Council's Senate floor, panic bloomed. Senators shouted. Security guards clustered near the exits. The Grand Arbiter demanded order, but no one was listening anymore. Holograms flickered, reports coming in faster than anyone could read. Disappearances. Explosions. Communications going dark. Entire fleets unreachable. This is retaliation, shouted a Yulari senator, his voice high and shrill. They're avenging the girl. Retaliation, growled a Grask warlord. This is a full-scale purge. A junior advisor collapsed to his knees, whispering. They were ready. They were always ready. And still, not a single message came from Earth. No ultimatum. No threat. The humans hadn't declared war. They simply acted. At street level, citizens fled in all directions as drop pods landed with dull, earth-shaking thuds. From within each, black armored soldiers stepped out, silent, faceless, and impossibly fast. These weren't peacekeepers. They weren't diplomats. These were the Obsidian Legion, the ones who didn't officially exist. On Earth, their name was whispered only in military black sites and presidential war rooms. They operated with a single directive. If diplomacy fails, finish the war before it starts. Each soldier moved with eerie precision, disarming guards, disabling ships, locking down spaceports. They didn't fire unless fired upon. But when they did, it was over in seconds. A squad entered the primary broadcast station. Inside, terrified technicians backed away as the team swept in. One soldier tapped into the control system, inserted a drive, and uploaded a short message. Seconds later, every screen across the galaxy lit up again. Not with an execution, but with a reckoning. A single image. The girl, alive in memory, standing beside Earth's president. Smiling, laughing, then a date, then a name. Her real identity. Not a spy, not a rebel, a student, a peace envoy, a daughter. Billions watched in stunned silence. The message ended with the Earth insignia, 3 interlocking rings, a burning star behind them, and the words, "You were warned." It was the first and last message Earth sent. In orbit, the Reaper-class warships aligned with eerie precision. Each ship fired once. Just once. That was enough. The outer planetary defense rings, vast, armored satellites thought to be unbreachable, vanished in white-hot implosions. Each shot had targeted a precise weak point. Each had been pre-calculated years in advance. On the ground, more human troops spread across the city, not looting, not burning, but marking targets, data centers, military vaults, genetic labs, slavery hubs, evidence rooms, everything the Council had hidden beneath gold and glory. The Legion wasn't just here to strike. They were here to expose. Council corruption, genocidal policies, secret research, files hidden for generations were uploaded to open networks, decrypted instantly by AI subroutines woven into the attack. Entire civilizations learned how their governments had lied to them. In minutes, trust collapsed. In hours, riots began. The Council's grip snapped like a dry bone. And all the while, no human voice said a word. The real war was already won, years before the girl's death. In the shadows, in code, in silence. Her execution wasn't the trigger. It was just the signal. At a Council military stronghold on the northern ridge, Commander Saran of the Varnak Legion stood on the balcony, staring at the burning sky. He had served for 200 years. He had fought insectoid plagues, silenced rebellions, crushed insurrections. But he had never seen war like this. "Sir," a junior officer called out, trembling. "Orders." Saran didn't reply. His comms were dead. His fleet unreachable. His planet surrounded. He watched as a human dropship landed in the courtyard, releasing 6 figures. Just 6. It was enough. He turned to his officer and said quietly, "Stand down. Tell the men to lay down arms." "But sir," Saran looked the young soldier dead in the eyes. We killed a child. A human child. The wrong one. And then he walked out to meet the soldiers in black. As the second hour passed, nearly half the council's territories had gone dark. The remaining half began broadcasting desperate messages to Earth. Please. Apologies. Denials. None received a reply. Because the humans didn't need to talk. The galaxy had already heard enough. The Earth Embassy on Viral 7 had remained quiet through the chaos. Its iron gates closed, its windows dark. While other alien embassies burned or were stormed by mobs, this one was untouched. Not out of respect. Out of fear. A single flag flew above it. Earth's sigil, now etched into the memory of every citizen in the galaxy. The same flag that had flashed across every screen only an hour ago, when humanity revealed the truth about the girl they'd executed. Her name was Alara Kane. She was 22, a university student, an intern at the Galactic Peace Initiative, and the only child of Earth's president, Marcus Kane. That detail hadn't been in any database the Empire had access to, because Earth never uploaded it. They didn't need the galaxy to know who she was, until the exact moment they wanted it known. Now that moment had passed, and with it, the illusion that the Galactic Empire was untouchable. Admiral Kor Veldros of the Imperial Fleet sat in silence aboard his command vessel, Vindicator. He had received no instructions from the Council for nearly 2 hours. Half of the Empire's communication network was down. The rest was clogged with cries for help, evacuation requests, or messages that made no sense. Frantic, broken, and begging. His bridge crew was on edge. Even the hardened veterans among them couldn't hide their fear. Veldros stared at the tactical display. It was littered with red. Human ships. Human drones. Human data ghosts. Those strange, flickering anomalies that preceded every cyber attack. Whole defense lines were falling without a single shot being fired. He tapped a command into the console. "Play it again," he said. The crew obeyed. Once more, Alara Kane's final minutes filled the air, her shackled frame, the silent tears, the cruel smile of the Council's executioner as he activated the energy blade. The crowd had cheered. Billions had watched live. And then came the pause. That long, haunting silence when her body hit the floor. Now, watching it again, Veldros didn't see a prisoner die. He saw a warning they had failed to hear. A junior officer approached, voice shaky. "Sir, our sister ships in the Ryan sector have gone dark." No word. No distress calls. Veldros didn't look at him. Gone dark or gone? The officer hesitated, then answered honestly. "We believe they were taken." Veldros stood, smoothing his uniform. "How many ships does Earth have in that region?" "We don't know, sir. They never registered any." "And that," Veldros said softly, "is what should have terrified us from the start." He knew then that this wasn't war. This was punishment. And it was being executed by a civilization that had studied the galaxy for a century, made friends, kept quiet, and never forgotten a single insult. On a mining colony in Sector 4, an elderly Grixa engineer stared at his data pad, shaking his head in disbelief. The humans had released everything, every document, every communication intercepted over decades, every war crime the Empire tried to erase. It was all there, open to the stars now. The girl, Alara, had been arrested under suspicion of espionage. But she was innocent. Even the charges against her had been manufactured. Her only crime was being present during a political protest that embarrassed a planetary governor. The execution had been approved as a show of dominance. It was supposed to remind the galaxy who was in charge. Instead, it reminded them that Earth had always watched. The Grixa looked up as the mine trembled. Human ships didn't fire on the facility. They landed. Hundreds of workers dropped their tools and ran, fearing a massacre. Instead, human engineers disembarked and began disabling the explosive collars around indentured laborers' necks. Medics followed, providing treatment, food, and clean water. A holographic projection hovered above them, a message translated into every known language. "You are free. You are no longer tools of tyrants. This is not mercy. This is justice." On Earth, President Marcus Kane stood alone in a steel-walled command room, watching the progress reports. Not a word had passed his lips in hours. He had buried his daughter quietly 3 days ago. No cameras, no speeches, just silence. He had given the order the next morning. The operation's name, Hammerfall. It had been prepared for 12 years. Kane watched as another transmission arrived. this time from an alien prince, begging for safe passage off a collapsing world. He didn't reply. A general approached behind him. Sir, we've received conditional surrender from 73 sectors. Some are offering full access to their databases. Others are offering leaders in chains. Kane's voice was cold. We don't want their leaders. We want their people to never forget. The general paused. What do we tell the council? Kane finally turned, eyes hard as stone. Tell them they had 27 minutes to reconsider what they'd done. And now they'll pay for every second. Across the stars, statues of the council's greatest leaders were being pulled down. Mobs marched not in Earth's name, but in Alera's. They carried her image. Her last words. They carried the name Kane like a blade. In less than a day, a single girl's unjust death had shattered the largest empire the galaxy had ever known. Not because she was powerful, but because the people who loved her were. And they were human. The council's great capital, Arten Prime, once the center of galactic power, was burning. Skyscrapers, some older than Earth's modern civilization, had collapsed into smoldering ruins. The streets ran not with water or fuel, but ash. The people no longer cheered for the council. They hid. They begged. They ran. And in orbit, hanging silently above the chaos, was the Revenant, a Terran dreadnought that had only existed in rumor. Its hull was coated in adaptive alloy. Its engines didn't burn. They hummed with power like a god exhaling. It had no visible weapons, yet it had turned entire fleets into wreckage in less than a minute. No warning. No diplomacy. Just consequences. Inside the dreadnought, Commander Alea Dorn sat at the tactical helm, staring at the spinning holograph of the city below. Her face showed no emotion. She was a veteran of Earth's silent fleet, a branch of the military that technically didn't exist. She whispered to her crew, "Activate Operation Memory." The crew obeyed without hesitation. Across Arten Prime, hundreds of holograms blinked to life, projected into the sky, on walls, through the comm networks. A loop began playing, not of war, not of Earth's strength, but of Alera. Clips of her smiling, studying in a garden on Earth, laughing with friends. Then the footage of her arrest, the trial, the cruelty, her final words, translated in hundreds of languages. I only wanted to help. I didn't do anything wrong. And the last image, her hand reaching out as the blade fell. Billions watched in silence. And then came Earth's voice, not Kane's, not a soldier's, but an AI-generated message broadcast to every sector. Some think justice is blind. Ours has 20/20 vision. This is not about war. This is about memory. The galaxy will remember what you allowed, what you celebrated, what you ignored. Back on Earth, Kane stood with his council of commanders. They were silent as they watched the latest footage of the council leaders fleeing like rats. The council's chancellor had escaped to a deep space vault station. Or so he thought. He never saw the Revenant's stealth pod dock silently on the hull. Inside, 3 Terran shock troopers moved like phantoms. No alarms. No warning. Just silence and swift movement. They reached the vault doors, doors said to be impenetrable. The lead trooper pulled out a small cube, attached it to the surface, and stepped back. In under 2 seconds, the entire vault opened like an egg under pressure. Inside, the Chancellor screamed. There were no negotiations. No words. Just a name whispered before a single shot to the head ended his reign. Alera Kane. The troopers vanished just as quietly as they had come. No trace left. Only a message carved into the vault's wall. We saw what you did. Now, you see what we can do. On the diplomatic world of Veltrin, 20 alien ambassadors sat in terrified silence across from Earth's envoy, Admiral Liz Marin. She wasn't here to demand surrender. She had no weapons, only a data drive. She placed it on the table and spoke. Inside this drive is a full list of every government, syndicate, or leader that publicly supported the Empire's decision to execute Alera Kane. No one moved. Marin's voice remained calm. You have 2 choices. Disavow them, strip them of their power, and dismantle every system of oppression they built, or share their fate. One reptilian diplomat croaked. You'll attack us all? Marin leaned forward. We don't have to. Your people will. Outside the chamber, the Veltrin public was rioting, not against Earth, but their own leaders. For the first time in memory, species who'd long been subjugated under the Council's rule were rising up, emboldened not by fear, but by human rage weaponized with precision. Because Earth wasn't conquering. It was showing the galaxy the cost of injustice. On a barren world, deep in the uncharted expanse, a group of mercenaries huddled in a bunker. They had once been proud to serve the Empire as enforcers. Now, every one of them had a bounty on their head, placed by Earth, paid in resources, protection, or even freedom. One of them, a grizzled former lieutenant, watched a human satellite feed with trembling hands. He saw Alara's face again and shook his head. "They're not coming to arrest us," he whispered. "They're coming to erase us." And he was right. One by one, those who had laughed during her execution were being hunted, not always by Earth, but by their own people, those who'd finally seen the truth through Alara's eyes. Because Earth didn't just bring destruction. They brought clarity. In the quiet corridors of a hospital on Earth, Marcus Kane walked alone to a private room. There, Alara's photo sat on a small altar. He placed a single flower beside it. His hand shook, but his face was hard. Behind him, his aide approached. "Sir, the last of the Council planets just fell. The Empire is no more." Kane didn't turn. He simply whispered, "Then it's done." The aide hesitated. "What should we do now?" Kane finally looked up at his daughter's image. "Now we rebuild," he said. "Not to lead them, not to own them, but to make sure this never happens again. Anywhere. Ever." And across the stars, the galaxy remembered one truth. Humanity had never asked to rule. But when provoked, they didn't just end empires. They rewrote history. Years passed. Not centuries, just enough for the galaxy to remember and reshape. Where once the Galactic Council stood, a crater of silence and shame remained. Its archives were opened by Earth's historians, and every corrupt deal, every fabricated trial, every silenced rebellion came into light. There were no more secrets. And in their place, Earth offered something far more terrifying to the old powers. Truth. Humanity didn't build a new empire. They didn't replace the Council's flag with their own. What they did instead was worse, for those who wanted control. They gave the galaxy a mirror, and the face that stared back was haunted by Alara Kane. In the capital of the new interstellar accord, a statue stood, not of a general, nor a conqueror, but of her, Alara, arms gently folded, eyes soft, carved from shimmering crystal that reflected light into every direction. At her feet were the broken chains of oppression, and engraved behind her was one sentence, etched in every known language. They thought she was alone. At its base stood diplomats, refugees, former enemies, and survivors. They left gifts, not out of fear, but reverence. A flower from the scorched forests of Culvera, a pendant from the freed slaves of Ambarox, even a broken chain, forged into a peace symbol, from the last loyalist of the Empire who defected after watching her execution. No one called her a martyr. No one dared call her weak. She had become something else entirely. A turning point. And Kane? He never returned to office. The Terran military was reorganized, its most devastating weapons sealed. The Revenant, the ship that had shattered the Empire's defenses in mere minutes, was retired. Not destroyed. Not hidden. It was parked on the moon, a silent monument to what happens when justice is ignored. In a classroom on a neutral planet called Izeron, children of different species listened to their teacher. A human woman named Sarah shared a story. Not about war, but about Alara's last act. She was offered a deal. "You know," Sarah said, looking around at her alien students. "The council said if she gave up the files she had gathered, proof of their crimes, they'd spare her life. Let her vanish." Quietly, a small-scaled child raised their hand. "Why didn't she?" Sarah smiled. "Because she knew some things are bigger than just staying alive." Another student, this one with feathered ears, whispered, "Was she scared?" "Yes," Sarah replied. But she wasn't silent. And then she showed them the recording. The same one that had been banned across the Council's core worlds before Earth tore them down. Alara, standing in a courtroom, hands bound. Her voice trembling. "But steady. If you kill me, you'll silence one voice. But my death will echo. Through every system. Every colony. Until the echo becomes a roar. You won't break us. You'll unite us." Sarah turned off the projector. And she was right. Across the galaxy, other stories flourished. Former Council generals now worked with human-led peacekeeping fleets. Old enemies of Earth petitioned to join its trade routes, not out of desperation, but admiration. Humanity had proven what no one else had ever dared. Mercy without weakness. rage with purpose, power restrained, until justice demanded it be unleashed. In the ruins of a council fortress, now transformed into a museum of remembrance, an old Varkari soldier gave a speech to new recruits. I watched her execution, he confessed. I thought it was justice. I didn't know who she was. I didn't care. I had seen humans fight, but I hadn't seen them grieve. He looked up, his voice hoarse. Now I serve beside them. And if I die, I know they'll remember me, not as a Varkari, but as a man who chose the right side. Because they taught me something simple. The galaxy doesn't need rulers. It needs protectors. On Earth, Marcus Kane stood on the shores of Alara's favorite beach. Alone. Gray streaked his hair now. The world had changed, but grief remained the same. Behind him, footsteps approached. It was Admiral Marin, older now, but still sharp. Sir, she said softly. Marcus, he corrected. I'm not president anymore. She joined him at the water's edge. You know, her name is taught everywhere now. Even the species that once cursed us now sing songs in her memory. King gave a tired smile. She never wanted any of this. She didn't want war, Marin agreed. But she was willing to become a reason for peace. He looked up at the stars, still endless, still silent. She should have had time. A life. Love. Family. All they saw was a tool to silence. Marin's voice was firm. They saw her as small. But she became the galaxy's spark. King closed his eyes. The wind blew softly. She was my daughter, he said. But now, she belongs to everyone. Far above them, the stars shifted slightly, and in orbit, thousands of small satellites passed by. Not for surveillance. Not for war. They projected Alara's last speech once a year, across every channel in known space. A reminder. A reckoning. A vow. And in every corner of the galaxy, on that day, even the coldest warlords and the harshest governments fell silent. Because they remembered what happened. Not because of a planet. Not because of a fleet. But because they executed a girl they didn't understand. And the galaxy paid the price.